We're going to start by going up to the GrayTech PowerPack connection vault. Left click on that. Then come down here on the left hand side to connections for compounds. And we're going to look at the back-to-back connection with plates. Now when you see this, the back-to-back connection, this works with compound shapes that are back-to-back. So any of the ones that you can see in here, basically, you're going to see double channel back-to-back, for example. And that's what we're using in this example here. Left click on the back-to-back connection with plates, pick your first element, right click, and then pick your second element. In order to get a plate in the middle, a space has to be left between these back-to-back elements or the plate will not be created. Once you've done that, you can see the connection gets created, and then you get a dialog box that allows you to go through and adjust the connection as needed. Let's move this over here. So the end plate for the first compound. We have different options here. First off, right from the first drop down, compound cut options. So you can see it says second. You can change that to first and you'll see that the top comes over top of the column. So the beam basically drops over the column. Or you can have the column run up beside the beam, or you can have it with an angle cut in the middle. Then you have what is the plate thickness. So if I come in here and I change this, I'll do it to 1 inch so you can see we're affecting the back plate here, right? So this is end plate on first compound. So you can come in here, you can adjust the thickness and then the other values. Do you want to fit that to the compound? Is it going to go the distance from edge to edge across? You can put in a specific value, which basically takes what we had there, or you can specify. You can see it's going to stretch it. Projections. So if you want, you can come into projections. So let's say we start off with it being edge to edge. Now you can project one side or the other and extend it. And you can go by bolts. So if you want, you can see it's going to the center of the bolts on each side, and then you can project from the center of the bolts how far over you want to come. At the bottom, you have value or by bolts, and this allows you to come in and adjust the plate length. So if I came in here and changed this to, let's say, 24 inches, you can see it's coming down. It also affects the plate coming into it. Okay. So the length of this will match the plate that goes between the two elements. So you may want to set this to whatever value you want it to be at and keep it there. You then have your offset from end, so where it comes up to the top. If you don't want it coming right to the top, you can leave a gap, specify the amount that you want. You can see it shifted it down basically. So if I went to put 3, for example, the whole plate shifts down by 3. Okay. So it's not just shortening it, it's actually shifting when you do the offset. You then have gap from first compound. So if you need to push it away from the elements, and I'll do this by a large amount, you can see it's pushing it out and away. It's too long or too far for the bolts to actually follow, so they stay behind. But when you put it back, you can see that they adjust around the plate properly. Then you have the end plate to the second compound. So that's this one up here. In here you have, again, fit to compound value projections by bolt, same thing as before, and the length layout, which again affects the plate. You can set that plate length to whatever you want, your offset from end, your gap from second compound. Exact same settings as we had for the first one. Then you have your middle plate, which is in here. In here you can say the gap between the compounds. Whatever that gap is that you left between those two elements, that's what it's going to be, or you can set it to value and choose your own value. The plate width layout, you can say fit to compound, value, you can set your own plate width value. So if I wanted to put rather large just to show you, you can see now it doesn't follow the plate, but it's following the value that you put in here. Fit to compound, we'll bring it back up to where we have the other one. You can do by projections and then set your projections. So that basically takes what your value was and you can project from there. Or your compound, where it fits compound, project from there. Or by bolts and adjust it that way. At the bottom you have length, and this works the same way with the other compound. Set the value, projections, or by bolts so that you can adjust the values going along this element. The chamfers that go around the plate, it basically comes out as a square plate. So you're going to get 4 sides. And then you can adjust the chamfer width, so whatever you want that to be. So you can see number 5 and number 6 down here is controlling what that is in this case here. So it's being cut perpendicular to there, it's being cut perpendicular to here. Okay, so it's in line this way with a 90-degree angle, and then it's in line this way with a 90-degree angle, and then this section is taken out with the chamfer. So you can adjust that to whatever you're looking for. So if I did, for example, 14 along here, you can see it pulls that angle back even more. And if I do this direction, this is perpendicular this way, and I did 6, you'll see that pulls it up even more. Okay, so it's pulled back this way 1 foot 2, and it's pulled up 6 inches, and then it gives you your chamfer. So where this perpendicular edge, or perpendicular to the secondary beam, and this edge perpendicular to the main beam, where they meet, from that point it's pulled up, and it's pulled back. After that, you have your bolt parameters. So first end plate, second end plate, first middle plate, second middle plate. So the first end plate is the one that we looked at first, and you can adjust. You can see just by adjusting the bolts, you can see that's coming in differently. Let me come in a little closer. Okay, you can see the bolts changing size here. You can set the bolt type and the grade, whether you want a nut and washer, nut and 2 washers, just a nut, and you can invert them if needed. Okay. Change to second end plate, you'll have the same thing up here. You can change the bolt sizes. If you come to first middle plate, so first middle plate, this is your middle plate here. These are the bolts for it. You can see that will adjust. And then second middle plate, same idea. Then you get your first plate bolts, and what this does is it controls the layout. So here again, first plate. Okay. How many columns do you want basically on each side? So I have 1. I can set what is the gauge distance. So if I find that it's too far apart, I can change it, adjust it. You can see it moves in. What is the top distance from the top down? How far do you want that to be? The horizontal or intermediate distance, you can set to whatever you want. Your vertical intermediate distance, and your distance between groups. So if we have a second group here, which you can go and place in, you'll need to extend the plate longer, however. But let's say I put 2 bolts there. You can see you're going to get that bolts. This controls the space between the first group and the second group. Where that first group ends, where that second group begins. Then you have the horizontal and vertical distances for that second group, which can be different from the first. It doesn't have to be in line. You can see the spacing doesn't have to be the same, and the width apart does not have to be the same either. Put that back to 0. Second plate bolts on top, much the same thing as before. You can set your top distance. This, however, is being measured from the flange. So if I come into here right now and I set the top distance to 0, you can see the bolts are being pulled back to that flange. And basically, it's from the flange edge out. How far do you want to go for your first bolt? The center of the first bolt hole, and that's where that's going to be created. The amount of vertical bolts that you want to have, and then you can have a second group as well here, similar to what we saw before. Middle plate, these are the bolts here. So you have middle plate first bolts. So this is this one here along the column. And you come into here, you can set your rows, your top distance, and all the same values that we had before, basically, for your first group and your second group, and the same thing for the bolts along the web of the second set of beams that hold that plate in place. You'll see the image here does a good job of showing you where you can find those bolts. Once you're done, come to the library. If this is a connection you use all the time, you can save it, edit it, give it a name, and say this is my connection, whatever it is that you'll recognize. Name it. Say OK. That's it. That is the back-to-back connection with plates from the PowerPack connection vault.